Barron Trump filed a defamation lawsuit against Jasmine Crockett, expecting the media circus and judicial system to work in his favor. But in under 12 seconds, one former insider revealed a secret strategy that completely destroyed his case. The news didn't trickle out slowly. It exploded like a bomb across every major platform. Barron Trump sues Jasmine Crockett for defamation. The headline blazed across television screens and social feeds within hours. Cable networks shifted into overdrive coverage mode. Podcasters, bloggers, and commentators dissected every angle before anyone had even examined the actual legal documents. This wasn't just another lawsuit. This was the youngest Trump child, now 20 years old, stepping out from years of media silence to launch a massive federal court battle. Not against a business rival or political opponent, but against Texas Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, one of Congress's most fearless and uncompromising voices. The allegation centered on her televised statement that Barron had quietly inherited his father's most problematic traits and was secretly wielding family influence to manipulate political narratives. The timing was explosive. Trump Sr. was neck-deep in campaign activities, while Crockett had just emerged from a heated congressional oversight session. This lawsuit was gasoline meeting a lit match. Legal reporters immediately dug deeper. The complaint, filed in federal court in Los Angeles, specifically cited Crockett's claim that Barron was pulling strings from the shadows and using the Trump brand to exert behind-the-scenes influence. His attorneys argued this caused devastating damage to his personal reputation. Public reaction split instantly. Trump supporters called it overdue justice. Crockett's allies labeled it pure intimidation. And Jasmine herself? She stepped out of her Dallas townhouse the morning after the filing, coffee cup in hand, and told assembled reporters with a knowing smile, "If they think this will make me back down, they clearly haven't been paying attention to my committee work." She paused, looked directly into the cameras, and added, "They chose the wrong target." Behind closed doors, however, her team was genuinely concerned. This type of lawsuit meant depositions, discovery phases, cross-examinations, and most dangerously, maximum exposure. The Trump family had always excelled at exploiting exactly these situations. Crockett's lead counsel, Marcia Tillman, renowned for her surgical precision in high-stakes defamation battles, advised immediate strategic caution. "They're not seeking monetary damages," she explained during their emergency strategy meeting. "They want to destroy your reputation. They want to drag you through public humiliation on live television." Jasmine's response was characteristically direct. "Then I'll give them a show worth remembering." But that confidence didn't eliminate the very real stakes. Within 48 hours, conservative media outlets had resurrected old footage of Crockett from college debates, town halls, even private speeches recorded without her knowledge. Every potential misstep she'd ever made, real or manufactured, suddenly became prime-time content. In the midst of this media storm, Jasmine sat quietly with her father in his modest living room outside Abilene. He glanced at her and asked, "You certain about this path, baby girl?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she asked, "Why does it always take a battle to make people listen?" Her father smiled knowingly. "Because truth doesn't move on its own. You have to push it." But that conversation happened before the courtroom proceedings began, before news cameras surrounded the courthouse, before one witness completely shattered the entire case. The real story was just beginning. The video evidence wasn't blurry or incomplete. It was crystal clear, high-definition footage from a live political roundtable broadcast 4 weeks before the lawsuit was filed. The evening's topic focused on how political dynasties shape public discourse. 4 panelists sat at the discussion table, but Jasmine Crockett commanded attention. Bold voice, sharp delivery, eyes that never wavered from difficult topics. She wasn't there to be diplomatic. She was there to speak truth. Midway through the program, the host turned to her. Do you believe Trump family members, particularly the younger generation, continue wielding political influence despite holding no official positions? Jasmine leaned forward without hesitation. Absolutely, and it's often done through back channels. People want to believe Barron is just some quiet kid staying out of politics, but that's not accurate. He's operating through intermediaries, shaping narratives, and frankly, he's adopted the worst aspects of his father's playbook. The studio fell momentarily silent, not shocked, but alert. The host raised an eyebrow. That's a serious allegation. Any concrete examples? Crockett didn't flinch. Let's discuss the coordinated media cleanup that mysteriously launched 3 days after I questioned that Trump-appointed judge during our House hearing. Barron's name didn't surface publicly, sure, but 4 sources connected to that media push trace directly back to his personal network. Pretending he's not involved is willful ignorance. That statement became the centerpiece of the lawsuit. The panel continued normally. No one stormed out, no shouting matches. It was standard political television, rough, blunt, fast-moving. But in subsequent weeks, those words circulated like wildfire, especially among conservative influencers who accused her of attacking a private citizen and targeting the Trump family for political gain. Crockett never retreated from her position. She doubled down. 3 days after the episode aired, she tweeted, "Power without transparency threatens democracy. If Barron Trump is playing political games behind closed doors, then yes, I'm going to expose that. Period." That tweet was screenshot and included in the legal complaint as evidence of continued malicious behavior. But those close to her knew this wasn't calculated politics. It was genuine frustration after months of watching political narratives quietly manipulated through anonymous sources and coordinated campaigns, especially following key hearings where Crockett had taken firm positions. Her chief of staff, Theo McMillan, was among the first to notice the pattern. He pulled her aside after a strategy session. "Have you noticed that every time you speak about judicial corruption, some story emerges the next day, trying to make you look unstable?" Jasmine nodded. "Like clockwork." Theo sighed. "Feels like someone's got their hands on the steering wheel, and it's not random." That growing suspicion led to her televised comments. It wasn't an impulsive moment. It was mounting pressure finally breaking through. Most people missed the complete context. The clip was edited, reposted without follow-up discussion, twisted to sound more personal than political. Online threads painted Jasmine as reckless, obsessed, even jealous. None of it made logical sense, but it spread rapidly anyway. In her Fort Worth office one evening, Jasmine rewatched the full panel discussion with her team. She paused the video and asked, "Did I state anything false?" Theo leaned back in his chair. "No, but you kicked the hornet's nest." She sipped her tea quietly. Maybe the nest needed kicking. What she couldn't have known then, what none of them could have anticipated, was that someone on the inside had witnessed this exact playbook before. That person possessed documentation, not speculation or anonymous tips, but names, emails, internal memos, and a detailed timeline that would later completely demolish the case. But before that bombshell dropped, the Trump team made their opening move, and it was loud. The lawsuit wasn't hastily assembled. It was strategically crafted, precisely timed down to the exact hour. Filed in federal court on a quiet Wednesday morning, it arrived with a carefully worded press statement signed by Barron Trump's legal representative, Theodore Langham, a high-powered attorney based in Beverly Hills, known for defending billionaires and managing reputation crises for wealthy heirs. The statement read, "Ms. Crockett's remarks were not only factually false, but deliberately designed to damage Mr. Trump's reputation and personal safety. We intend to pursue every available legal remedy to address this malicious conduct." Those words weren't randomly chosen. By mid-afternoon, right-wing commentators were repeating identical talking points. Deliberately designed, damaging, reckless disregard. The messaging was perfectly coordinated. Barron had stayed out of politics, they argued. He had maintained the high road and remained silent. But this attack crossed the line. In their Beverly Hills media war room, a rented floor in an upscale tower near Rodeo Drive, Barron's team had already mapped out their complete narrative strategy. Video segments were prepared, commentators briefed, social media influencers provided with talking points disguised as personal opinions. Everything was designed to frame Barron as an innocent victim of an unprovoked smear by an attention-seeking Congresswoman desperate for relevance. Barron himself remained mostly off-camera, but wasn't invisible. Sources close to the operation revealed he had been deeply involved behind the scenes, approving content, greenlighting legal language, and requesting weekly progress briefings. When questioned publicly, his attorney maintained the same line. Mr. Trump is focused on protecting his privacy and reputation. That phrase was repeated almost verbatim during every media appearance by Langham. What many observers didn't realize was that behind closed doors, things weren't quite so controlled. 4 days after filing, Barron sat at the long glass conference table in the legal office's private meeting room, scrolling through screenshots on his tablet. He turned to Langham. "Why hasn't she responded yet?" "She's not scared, she's stalling." Langham, always composed, replied, "Because she's intelligent. She won't reveal her strategy prematurely." Barron's eyes narrowed. "Well, she better understand this isn't just about her words. It's about respect. My name isn't going to be dragged through the mud by a woman with a Twitter account and a microphone." Silence filled the room. Langham didn't respond to that comment. He understood that targeting a sitting member of Congress carried enormous risk, especially one with Crockett's national platform. But he also knew Barron didn't care about risk. He cared about control. What they failed to anticipate, or perhaps underestimated, was Crockett's refusal to bend. In the following days, she offered no apology. She didn't retract her statements. She didn't post clarification videos or soften her tone. Instead, she let the story develop naturally, allowing the Trump camp to spin themselves while her team did what they did best: investigate.
Crockett's legal advisor, Marcia Tillman, had encountered this type of lawsuit before: wealthy plaintiff, thin claims, media spectacle. But she'd also observed one consistent pattern: aggressive lawsuits like this often came with hidden vulnerabilities. If they remained patient long enough, someone always came forward. She stated it plainly during a private call with Jasmine. "This isn't just about defamation. This feels like a warning shot." Jasmine replied, "Then let's fire back." That's when Marcia made the move that transformed the entire case. She contacted a former communications aide who had worked in both Trump and Biden administrations, someone with insider knowledge who'd witnessed firsthand how narratives were shaped and distributed, and who had recently been quietly pushed out from a major PR firm linked to Trump donors. His name wasn't made public yet, but his message was crystal clear. He told Tillman, "I have documents and I have reasons to speak."
What no one knew then was that his testimony would be the exact 12 seconds that ended everything. But before that explosive revelation, the courtroom would get its first glimpse of just how deeply this conflict had been orchestrated. The initial meeting with Jasmine's legal team didn't occur in a traditional law office or government building. It was held in a small, privately rented conference room in downtown Phoenix, a quiet location away from D.C., cameras, and endless media noise. The table was cluttered with case files, laptops, and 4 empty coffee cups by noon. Jasmine leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, letting everyone else speak before weighing in. Marcia Tillman clicked through a PowerPoint presentation that was anything but flashy. Bullet points, court precedents, key quotations, but the implications were heavy. "They're portraying you as emotional and unprofessional," she said, "but their own filing is thin, deliberately vague. That tells me they're relying on public perception more than legal facts." Across the table, Theo scrolled through a printed packet of social media analysis. "Look at this," he said. They have coordinated responses within minutes of each other. Half these accounts use identical phrasing. Reckless attack from a desperate Congresswoman. Jasmine took the pages and read quietly, then placed them down. So we have a pattern. Now we just need proof of coordination. That's when Marcia looked up and said something that changed the entire energy in the room. We may have it. Phones were silenced, doors locked tighter. She opened her laptop and shared the summary of her conversation with the unnamed former aide. He had reached out through a mutual contact in media, claiming he possessed documents, emails, internal memos, all connected to a narrative-building operation launched just days before the lawsuit. Not rumors or hunches, internal communications. Initially, Jasmine was skeptical. Why would he help us? Marcia shrugged. He said he left on bad terms, said this operation got too dirty for him, and he doesn't like how quickly they weaponized the media machine. Theo chimed in. Sounds like guilt, Jasmine added, or someone trying to clean their hands before something worse surfaces. Either way, they agreed to hear him out. A Zoom call was arranged with strict parameters. No recordings, no screenshots, no identifying information shared. The man's voice was steady, mature, clear. He didn't ramble or try to make it personal. He just laid out the facts. There was a file labeled Strategic Public Retaliation. It included Crockett's name, media targets, talking points, and a list of headlines they hoped would gain traction. It wasn't just Barron's idea, but he had signed off on it. That approval was documented in the memo, dated and authenticated. Theo leaned in, his tone sharp. You're saying Barron Trump approved a document to smear a sitting Congresswoman, then sued her for responding to it? The man didn't hesitate. Yes, and I'll testify if necessary, but only if I'm protected. It was overwhelming to process. Jasmine stayed quiet for a full minute, then looked at Marcia. If he's telling the truth, this isn't just a lawsuit anymore. This is coordinated manipulation, and I'm not staying silent. The decision was made. Marcia filed a motion the next day requesting the court allow a surprise witness for the defense under sealed identity until the hearing. That motion sent shockwaves through the legal community, not just for what it implied, but for who might be involved. Journalists speculated wildly. Trump allies panicked. The judge, a no-nonsense appointee known for swift rulings, approved the motion within 18 hours. Meanwhile, Jasmine remained outwardly calm. She continued attending hearings, spoke at 3 town halls, never once addressed the lawsuit directly, but privately, she prepared for war. She met with Theo in a parking garage the night before the first hearing. "You sure about this?" he asked. She nodded. If they wanted silence, they should have chosen someone else. They thought the courtroom would be their arena, but they're about to discover it's mine. Los Angeles's federal courthouse didn't look like the epicenter of a political earthquake from the outside. It was glass and concrete like any government building. But that morning, the sidewalks were packed shoulder to shoulder. News crews, photographers, protesters, supporters on both sides. Barron Trump wasn't there. His team said he was monitoring from a secure location. Jasmine Crockett was. She walked through the front doors at 7:30 a.m. wearing a charcoal gray suit with no jewelry. Her expression was unreadable. Cameras flashed, microphones stretched toward her, someone shouted her name. She didn't stop, didn't wave, just walked straight in, head high. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was tense but quiet. The gallery was packed, reporters lined the back rows. On the plaintiff's side, Theodore Langham sat with 4 other attorneys, each with tablets, folders, and color-coded tabs. They looked prepared for a marathon. On the defense side, Marcia Tillman sat beside Jasmine, calm and still, flanked by a junior associate and Theo, who was technically consulting but mostly there to keep Jasmine grounded. Judge Bernice Kaplan entered at 8:47 a.m. sharp. Former prosecutor, known for being fair but fast. She scanned the room like someone accustomed to handling people who thought they were above her authority. She didn't smile. The hearing began with opening statements. Langham went first, his voice smooth, almost soothing. Your Honor, the plaintiff, Mr. Trump, brings this suit not as a political statement, but as a citizen defending his name. The defendant, Congresswoman Crockett, falsely accused Mr. Trump of shadow influence and manipulation with no evidence and with full knowledge of the harm it would cause. He referenced Crockett's televised comments and her follow-up tweets, framing them as reckless, repeated, and publicly amplified by her own office. Every word was calculated to make her sound dangerous, impulsive, and out of control. Then it was Marcia's turn. She stood without notes. This case isn't about reputation, it's about power. My client answered a question with honesty based on credible information and a clear pattern of behavior. This lawsuit is an attempt to silence dissent and punish speech. We will show the court that the plaintiff not only sought to discredit Congresswoman Crockett, but initiated a behind-the-scenes campaign against her long before this lawsuit was filed. Judge Kaplan raised an eyebrow at that last statement but said nothing yet. Witnesses were called next. The Trump team opened with a digital media expert who claimed Jasmine's words caused a measurable spike in online threats against Barron. He showed charts, graphs, even heat maps of social activity. On cross-examination, Marcia was surgical. Can you prove the threats came from her followers? Not directly. Can you confirm she encouraged any threats? No. So what you're saying is she spoke and the internet did what the internet does. The witness hesitated. In a manner of speaking, yes. It wasn't a victory, but it wasn't a loss either. Next, the Trump team brought in a behavioral analyst who tried to argue that Jasmine's tone on the panel was provocative, emotionally charged, and designed to incite. It was a strange moment, more like a TED Talk than expert testimony. Even the judge seemed annoyed. Marcia objected twice, once successfully. Meanwhile, Jasmine sat silent, focused, taking notes. She wasn't the target in the courtroom yet, but pressure was mounting. Every time her name was mentioned, every time a clip played or a tweet was projected, all eyes turned to her. Then, near the end of the day, Judge Kaplan called a brief recess. As attorneys huddled in their corners, a notification buzzed on Theo's phone. He glanced down, read it, and handed it to Marcia. She looked at it, blinked once, then leaned toward Jasmine and whispered, "He's in. He'll testify." Jasmine didn't react visibly. She just breathed in once, slow and deep. The surprise witness had officially agreed, and he was coming the next morning with everything he had. The court wasn't ready, but Crockett was. The courtroom was buzzing by 7:30 a.m., but not in the typical way most days begin. Word had leaked late the previous night. Jasmine Crockett's team had added a new witness, unannounced, sealed. People speculated, argued, even placed online bets. Some said it was a former staffer. Others thought it might be a media whistleblower. No one guessed who actually walked through the doors. When Judge Kaplan entered, she was clearly aware of the noise surrounding the case, but she wasted no time. "Defense may proceed," she said, her voice clipped and direct. Marcia Tillman stood. "Your Honor, we call Mr. Garrett Wynn to the stand." There was a beat of silence, then a shuffle of chairs and quick glances. Garrett Wynn, not a household name, but to those in D.C. and campaign communication circles, it rang a bell. Former strategic advisor, spent time under both Trump and Biden media operations. Quiet reputation, rarely interviewed, never flashy. He walked in wearing a navy suit, thin frame, glasses, and the posture of a man used to staying behind the camera. He took the stand, was sworn in, and sat down with both hands folded in his lap. Marcia opened carefully. "Mr. Wynn, can you tell the court your most recent position?" "Until March of this year, I worked as senior media consultant at Park Bridge Strategies. Prior to that, I served as director of special communications projects under both the Trump and Biden White Houses. Langham stood immediately. Objection, relevance. Judge Kaplan didn't blink. Overruled. Continue. Marcia nodded. Mr. Wynn, during your time at Park Bridge, were you made aware of a communications campaign targeting Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett? Wynn didn't flinch. Yes. The air thinned. Marcia paced slowly. Was Mr. Barron Trump involved in that campaign? Yes. The gallery shifted. Reporters looked up from their notepads. Cameras zoomed in. How was he involved? Wynn leaned forward slightly. He signed off on a memo titled Strategic Public Retaliation, which included targeted messaging, selected media partners, and a list of priority subjects, Congresswoman Crockett among them. Langham rose again. Your Honor, I object to the term retaliation. It's loaded and prejudicial. Kaplan raised a hand. He's quoting the document. Sit down. Wynn continued, now steady, confident. The memo outlined specific language to be used when referring to Ms. Crockett, words like unhinged, obsessed, and disgraced. It also referenced timing for media releases, coordinated tweets, and friendly influencers who would echo the messaging. Barron Trump reviewed and approved the final version. Marcia paused, then like clockwork. And how long before this lawsuit was filed was that memo approved? Wynn didn't hesitate. 4 weeks, just 12 seconds. That's all it took. In 12 seconds, the entire framing of the lawsuit collapsed. What was once presented as a reaction to defamation now looked like a planned trap, an orchestrated media ambush that Barron himself had helped build long before Crockett ever appeared on that panel. Langham tried to shake Wynn on cross-examination. He asked about motive, loyalty, even money. Are you testifying for political reasons? No. Have you been offered compensation? Not $1. So why are you here? Wynn finally looked right at him. Because there's a line, and I watched them step over it. The courtroom was still. Judge Kaplan recessed for lunch. No one moved. It was as if the weight of those 12 seconds needed time to settle into the walls, into the minds of every journalist, every aide, every citizen who would see the headlines by the hour. Jasmine remained seated for a moment, staring at the front of the courtroom. Then she turned to Marcia and whispered, "They came in here thinking this would be my loss." Marcia smiled. Turns out they built their case on their own mistake. The press hadn't even finished typing the quotes yet, but the damage was done.